obviously this is like a roller coaster of emotions right now.
She's been crying the whole time.
Yeah. But do you have any pets of your own, like a cat or a dog?
Oh yes, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 cats. I have 3 dogs and a ferret.
Ooh.
Yes, that's just currently. So yeah, I've had pretty much every array of animal you can think of, from snakes, tarantulas, mice. Right now I even have an office cat, because it was a cat that she doesn't do well in our kennel system here, like in the cages. She doesn't show well. So I took her into my office just to kind of socialize her a little bit. And, well, now she kind of runs the office. So I'm still trying to get her adopted when I find the right people that come in inquiring, about a cat. But everybody pretty much thinks she's just going to end up staying in the office. So, yeah.
I hope you do. I hope. How do you feel when you see a stray animal on the streets?
For me, it's frustrating. Very emotional roller coaster, like you girls were talking about. I know before I started with animal control or animal care services, the first time I ever went and I applied for a position, I lived in California, and I was like, oh, I can do this. I love animals. I've had animals all my life. But then hearing the questions, it was kind of that you had to pause and, okay, can't cry, I can't do this. But now it's more, because I've been working with animal control for a total of 8 years. With 2 cities. I came from San Antonio, and then I worked up there for 4 years, and then I've worked here in Corpus for 4 years. And it's just frustrating knowing that more than likely 80% of the animals that are on the street at one time did have a home. And they're either the product of an animal, say their mom was actually an owned animal who got left behind or kicked out for whatever reason, and so they were born and they've lived on the streets, all their lives. Or the fact that somebody it's not a cute puppy or a cute kitten anymore, and instead of trying to rehome it and finding a place for that animal to live, they're like, it's just an animal, it'll survive, and they just kick it out. So it is very frustrating, just because of the fact of the way that people kind of treat the animals. I've lived in different countries. Like, I've lived in Japan for 10 years, and seeing the way that they kind of treat their animals is so different than us. I mean, you talk about, now we dress our animals, and I mean, multi-billion-dollar industry when it comes to animal clothing and products and grooming and all that. But the Japanese have been doing that since I was in elementary school, that I can remember. And just seeing how they, treated theirs. Totally different. Even their strays, they treat them, completely different than the way we do. So it's just frustrating to see, especially down here in South Texas, because you can go up north and they don't have the problems we do. So it's not so much saddening, because you've seen it, and it's like, well, what type of life is that animal going to have if you just put them in a cage? At least they're able to live, and be free and live their life, but at the same time knowing that they don't have anybody that's truly caring for them if they get sick, if they get injured. They have the possibility of, contracting different diseases, and also being hit by cars, and just, coming in contact with people who don't care for animals whatsoever, so.
Do you find the occurrence of stray animals to be an ongoing problem in Corpus?
It is. I think in the 4 years that I've been here, I've seen certain areas of the city where there's not as many stray animals as when I first moved down here. Because I know when I first came down, of course, it was more the tourists. So I wasn't in like the inner parts of the city, and so I was like, they don't have any strays here. Oh, I love it, compared to San Antonio. But then once, I was an officer and I'm out driving around, I was like, oh, they have just as many, type of a thing. But I have seen areas where officers, we've actually gone out and we've started educating and talking more one-on-one, because when I first got here 4 years ago, we really didn't do that. it was all enforcement. Well, that works great, and we were just picking up animals, but at the same time, we're not educating the community. So they would just get another animal and then let them loose, and then they're breeding, or, you know, they're not the cute puppy anymore, like I said, and so now they're out on the street, and they've got another cute puppy that they've picked up 3 houses down because, you know, there was a litter down there. So I have seen where we do have more responsible owners. We still do have areas in the city that we are, you know, where officers are targeting and they see. And so we're now going out and, you know, talking to them. We're working with other nonprofit organizations to where we can work with them one-on-one, you know, get the medical care that they need, get the appropriate pet, you know, care and responsibility for pet ownership that, you know, they do need. Because a lot of people don't realize what the laws are here in Corpus. They don't realize what the state laws are. So it's good just educating them. And I mean, like you girls, the way I look at it is I can go talk to your parents and talk to your grandparents all day long. And they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. They've been doing this for how many years, and this is the way it works. If we go out and we talk to the kids in the school, you're the next generation. You're our change. So if we teach you guys, you know, responsible pet ownership, we teach you guys the laws, then you can go home. You can sit down while you're at dinner, because I have the teenage kids. I know how it is. You've got the phone, you know, nobody talks to anybody anymore, you know. Yeah, we're having dinner, family dinner, but nobody's talking, you know, the TV's on in the background, nobody's paying attention to each other. But you can actually bring up things and like, hey, did you know that it's beneficial if we get Fluffy, the little poodle, you know, that we've had for 4 years, if we get her fixed because of this, this, and this, and this? Then parents start listening, because number one, they're like, oh my gosh, my kid learned something at school. They're not just going and playing on their phone and talking to their friends, you know. So that's kind of the goal that I see is, you know, by us targeting the school age kids, targeting, you know, the young adults, then our generations are going to become more pet friendly, more responsible ownership. It's not going to be the old way of thinking. Just like that's why it's no longer really animal control. It's more animal care, because that's what all the industry is gearing towards. So it's getting better. It just takes time.
Yeah. Have you had any significant experience involving stray animals?
I have actually, I have 2 stories, not happening here in Corpus. It was beforehand, where I was an officer actually out in the field, and the call was for an abandoned kitten. And when I rolled up to the scene, you know, I get out, and the RP, or, you know, the person who called it in, she's like, yes, this is the kitten, and it's a little, like, 4-week-old kitten, just this little bitty thing, as sick as can be. You know, the eyes are all closed shut and just snot running down its nose. Well, somebody had thrown it in the trash can, and it was trash day. The lady went out, you know, to put her trash can at the curb, and she heard something meowing. She opened up the can, and there's a kitten on top. So she called it in. And of course, I don't know what it was, because I had seen many kittens, puppies, you know, everything, but there was something about that cat, and it was just like, oh my gosh, you know, I can't let anything happen to it. So I ended up fostering the thing as just like a little haha, because it was found in a trash can. We named it Trash Can Kitty. TKC, you know, just a little haha, you know, type thing. Actually, that animal now lives with my cousin in San Antonio.
That's great.
It was her graduation present. I was like, here you go, you know, type of a thing. So just seeing, you know, that somebody, number one, took the time to like hunt out because they heard something. And then, you know, just those little heartstrings, you know, get pulled. And like I said, I don't know why certain animals do it, because you see them every day like that. And there's just those ones. And then there was a time before I was an officer. I was actually a kennel technician, so I worked in the kennels, no big deal. And we had this fat Chihuahua come in. And you know, Chihuahuas, they're what, 10 pounds? Oh, this one was like 20 pounds. So fat Chihuahua. And then a boxer, like pit bull mix that came in, and he just looked like he was bones with some skin thrown over him. So it looked like the Chihuahua was eating all the food for both of them. And once again, you know, something about the dog. I mean, he looked like every other dog that came into the shelter, you know, that day type of a thing, but ended up taking him home. and was able to actually, nurse him back to health slowly. And when I got him, he weighed 12 pounds. Mm-hmm. So this is a boxer, 12 pounds is what he weighed. And he actually lives with Trash Can Kitty, who's now named Monster. My cousin took him into, and his name is now Jack Jacks. And he is a very overweight puppy. But I mean, just those type of things, seeing, a stray that's in the worst condition and just seeing them change and how they are now. Here in Corpus, when I came down here, and actually when I became a supervisor, the kennel supervisor down here, just some dogs that we had in our kennel system, strays off the street. They look like every dog that comes through. Unfortunately, you'll have 5 that look identical to each other. And we were able to send them to different states. Majority of them at the time went to Colorado. We were sending them to Colorado and just getting the pictures. Mm-hmm. Seeing these dogs that down here, they've never seen snow before in their life. I mean, the beach is the closest to snow type thing that they've got. And we're getting pictures of these animals, frolicking in the snow and playing with their new brothers and sisters and, laying down by a nice warm fire. And it's just, it's a good feeling to know that here was an animal that looked like 5 other dogs here in the shelter that just kept getting passed over. But yet they're living in Colorado right now, playing in snow, which we never see, and they're just a totally changed dog. You see the total difference in them. It's really a good feeling to see them. Mm-hmm. So, it makes you want to go out and, find those animals and, try to find, hopefully people will give you that, this is the outcome of how, their lives are. It's really nice to get that back.
Do you feel they have an equal chance of finding a home, like a stray animal compared to a shelter animal?
I think they do, because people feel sorry for the strays on the street. Especially here in Corpus, there is an overwhelming population of people that have large hearts here. Mm-hmm. They do. And I know many people like on Facebook and everything, they're going out there, they're trying to rescue dogs. They're doing it, on their own time. They're spending their own money to get them bedded and everything. My thing is just when you pick up an animal off the street, you don't know what you're getting. Even here at the shelter, our animals do come off the street, but at least when you adopt them from a shelter, that they've been checked out by a vet. They've been at least given vaccinations. We spay and neuter every animal that leaves here, so they're not going to reproduce in 6 months or less. That they've been here, people have been already socializing with them a little bit, so we kind of know their behavior, where when you're taking them off the street, you're kind of taking, straight off the street, you're taking that gamble. You don't know what you're gonna get. So that makes it a little leery sometimes for people. Like I said, they've got a huge heart and they want to do the best thing. And most of the people who do take in an animal off the street, they already have animals of their own. So now you're bringing in an animal that you don't know its history, and you're putting your own, fur babies in possible harm's way, maybe of catching, some sort of disease that maybe that animal has. Or even if they don't get along with, animals. At least in a shelter environment, we can test them with other animals. I'm not saying it's always works out perfectly like that, but at least a little bit more about that animal. So I think the shelter route is more the way to go just because of that. But I do know, I've seen it here in Corpus. There's a lot of people that will go out and, pick up animals. But most of the time, to be honest, the ones that are going to get picked up off the street are your puppies, your cute little kittens, because everybody feels really sorry for those. And the mama dog is still left out there, and now she's going to be bred probably by all the stray males in less than 6 months, and you're just going to have another litter down the street. So at least coming through a shelter, that those animals are fixed. Mm-hmm. So they're not reproducing constantly out on the street.
Do you have any idea of any problem that stray animals can cause in the community?
There's, there's multiple problems that can happen. One is if you have, especially springtime.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knows from the movie Bambi what happens in the springtime. When females go into heat and they're on the street, you're probably going to have every male that's unaltered or not neutered within about a mile's radius trying to get to that female because she's in heat. So even one female, you may have a pack of 7 to 10 male dogs trying to get to her. So at that time, now they're becoming more aggressive with each other, with people trying to walk their dogs. They're going to go and attack because they want that female for them. With cats, a big thing with cats are overpopulation. If you don't get your animal, your female fixed, it's kind of the same way. The male cats are going to come. And then just the fact of the animals are constantly reproducing. So now you have an animal that was, say, 2 cats that are now 12. And so you've got 12 cats running around. Your neighbor has a beautiful flower garden. Well, the cats don't see it as a flower garden. They see it as a litter box. And so you've got now feces in people's yards. You've got cats that are climbing all over people's cars, scratching them up, because they don't get their nails trimmed or anything. They're just outside. If you have people that own, say, backyard chickens and things like that with stray animals that don't have a constant source of food, what are they going to do? They're going to go after those chickens. They're going to go after, those people's animals, possibly, if they're going, around in a pack mentality type thing. So there's many, different things that can come up when you talk about stray animals being on the street. And it just depends. And some animals, they could live on the streets all their lives and they're the friendliest dog ever. Mm-hmm. But it's how are they treated while they're out there? If they live in a community where everybody's trying to shoo them away, well, now they become fearful of people, or do they find that one person who does, maybe throw them some scraps or throw them some food? Well, now they become territorial for that area. Mm-hmm. So any other animal or any person who comes into that area, they're trying to protect, that area because this is their home. So that's where we run into our bite cases and things like that. And kids are kids. They're going to, oh, it's a cute dog. They're going to run up and try to pet them. The animals don't know what they're doing. They just see threat. And so they can't say, hey, get away from me. So they're going to bite. They're going to scratch. They're going to do this. So then, it leads to that child or that person now has to get, maybe antibiotics, maybe rabies vaccinations and different things like that. So it does become, a big problem just from one animal being on the street.
What do you think happens to stray animals that you see?
If they stay on the street or if they come in here?
Like if they stay.
If they stay on the street, I think majority of the ones, like when I'm driving down the street, if I see a stray on the street, I think majority will probably either be hit by a car at one time and maybe live their life, with that injury all their life. Or I know just from being down here that there's some areas that the dogs know the area. They're smart. They know where every hole in the fence is. They know everything. So when it comes to us trying to catch them, they know our trucks. We turn the corner, they hear us, and they run. Because we've been trying to catch them for a year. But I do think majority of them probably end up with some sort of a disease, whether they may end up with distemper or bordetella, which is like a kennel cough type thing. With cats, a lot of them will get, because they live like in a community type, mm-hmm. they'll end up with upper respiratory infections because they don't have somebody to give them the medical care and they've never had the vaccines, to help prevent that. But I think the biggest thing is probably they get hit by cars or just they're never socialized. And so they get involved with other dog fights or attacked by other animals in the area.
Okay. Have you ever done something in effort to help them?
I have actually, even before I was animal control, I was that crazy person that would see a kitten on the side of the road and try to go catch it.
Yeah.
I didn't think about rabies. I didn't think about, oh, this cat doesn't know what people are. But yeah, I would try to bring them home, and I was that kid that would come home and be like, please, can we keep it? And my parents are just like, no, go put it back. But just trying to talk to people and finding out, trying to do a lot of outreach. Even on my own time, I'll try to work with maybe some nonprofits and go to adoption events and stuff like that, just to kind of help people and make people aware. Not so much, it doesn't have to be in my uniform or thing, but just so that people understand what the laws are here. That helps out a lot more with the strays and everything, because then they understand why it's important to keep their animal on a leash, why it's important to get them vaccinated, so then those animals don't become strays or don't contribute to the stray population by fathering a litter of puppies down the street, from that stray female that's running around. That's really mostly my efforts, when I'm not working, just doing my normal job, is, helping some of the nonprofits around here, or in my own time, I do a lot of I'll go through Facebook just to see, hey, this animal looks like this animal over here, type thing, back and forth.
The dog that bit Veronica Langford, where is she?
Gulf Coast.
Is still there?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Do you think that local animal shelters and animal control are capable of helping the situation?
I think they are. I think their biggest task, and I'm just saying this because I do work for animal care, and even, and this is both cities that I've worked for with animal care, the biggest task that they have is personnel issues, because we have a lot that we want to do, a lot of programs, a lot of education, but we just don't have the person to say, this is going to be your job, because we have so many different things, like going out and picking up all the animals, making sure that, our main focus is keeping the citizens of the city safe, from dog bites, from, rabies control, all of that type of stuff, making sure that everybody's safe, but yet we want to go out to the schools and do outreach programs, so that way we can teach from kindergarten to high school, but we don't have that officer, that one officer that we can say, this is going to be your job, because we have to pull them to do, to go out and pick up the strays. We want to have more adoption events to where we can bring in more animals off the street, get them fixed, get them into good homes. But unfortunately, we only have one adoption person. Mm-hmm. It's a little hard to do adoptions at the shelter and off-site someplace if I only have one person. So that, I think, is our hardest mountain to kind of overcome, is trying to figure out how can we do all these different projects that we want to do. We have ideas like crazy, but it's just we don't have the manpower. There's not enough hours in the day for us to do it. And so that's our hardest part right there.
What is the best actions you can take when a stray animal crosses your path?
The biggest thing is just remember not to pet the dog or to try to pet the cat. I know if you find an animal in distress, first thing with human nature is to go help. But a lot of times that judgment, kind of clouds our reaction time and things like that, and you don't think everything through. And so just to mainly, contacting. If you contact animal control, we may not be able to go out there right then and there. If it's an animal in distress, it's a higher priority for us, because we don't want that animal to feel any sort of discomfort, anything like that, like if it was hit by a car or something like that. So that's a higher priority for us to go assist. Majority of our bite cases that we see, they're what we call provoked, which means that a person went up to the animal and physically tried to move it, or a kid tried to pet it. stray dog, stray cat, they don't know who this person is, or they're in pain because they're injured. And so their only defense mechanism is to bite and scratch. And so the main thing is just remember, don't go chasing after it. If it is an injured, call the authorities first. Let us handle it. We've had vaccinations, we've had training to actually move that animal, so that way you don't put yourself in harm's way. And like I said, I know the first thing that human nature, we want to help. We want to make sure they're okay. But at the same time, that's what gets us in trouble sometimes, is that urge to help.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's it.
Thank you.
all right,
So much. Yeah.
not a problem.
Oh, can we get your name and?
Sure. Do you guys want one of my business
sure.
cards?